It wasn't for lack of trying. Calling from a 361 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
My name's Alfred, and I'm in Texas.
Alfred in Texas. What's on your mind?
I'm just wondering if you guys think Ukraine can actually win the war against Russia.
What constitutes win in your mind or in Ukraine's mind, do you imagine?
Oh, so you think they can? Okay.
No. I said, what constitutes win in your mind or in Ukraine's mind?
When they beat back Russia out of their territory?
All of it? Like the Donbass and Crimea?
Not Crimea.
So just the Donbass? I don't know if they're going to be able to do that.
Wow. Okay. So if it looks like to me, it's immoral to encourage people to fight a war that they cannot win. That's how I see it.
Whose opinion as to whether they can win the war or not is the one that we're supposed to subscribe to? Mine?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Okay, you say it is immoral to encourage people to wage a war, and we'll get to the encourage part, but you say it's immoral to encourage people to wage a war against an opponent that they, or a war that they cannot win. Who determines whether they can win? Is it me? Am I in charge of that?
It's just looking at the numbers, how big Russia's army is, and they have nukes. And
right, they have nukes. Are you suggesting that the Russians are about to use nukes? Do you know if the Russians will use the nukes to save the Donbass or the Crimea
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. So I'm sorry. So again, I ask you, who gets to determine this? Me? Am I in charge of determining whether they can win or not so that we can say about the morality, or is it you? Or is it Matt or Emma or Bradley? Or who gets to decide? Biden?
So do you honestly think you?
You know what you're finding is you can't answer that question, and your statement pivots on two important things. One is like the is encouragement, and the other is determine that they cannot win. And if you cannot tell me who is the arbiter of who cannot win, we can't even get on to the rest of your statement. Okay, but it's going to be you. Is it you? Just tell me. Is it you?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, so you're in charge of this whole thing as to whether they can win or not. And how many of these Ukrainians have you talked to assess whether they think they can win? I'm just curious as to how you get.
They believe. I think they believe the state, whatever the state tells them. You know.
Oh, so the Ukrainians are deluded.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to get the lay of the land. Don't get so defensive about it. I'm just trying to get the lay of the land. You're going to decide whether the Ukrainians have the ability to take back. We're not even quite clear on what winning means, right? We haven't quite determined what that is.
Beating the Russians back out of Ukraine.
Okay, out of Donbass and Crimea. What if they were to say
not Crimea.
Okay, not Crimea. Just out of the Donbass. You are in charge of determining whether that's possible or not. And how do you know that that's what their agenda is?
Well, it needs to be part of their agenda.
Wait, okay, I'm sorry. You're in charge of what their agenda should be too.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, how do you where do you find the time?
I mean, man, yeah, you need some.
Do you have
assistance.
A job?
Yes.
Okay, how do you find the time? You don't have kids though, right?
No.
Okay. Maybe that's what it is. Because I know that if I was in charge of having to determine whether Ukraine could win or not, and also in charge of knowing that all the Ukrainians are deluded, and to determine what their agenda is in fighting this other country that has invaded their territory, I'd be exhausted.
How about if you reverse it, caller? What about Russia's ability to win the war?
I think if you do just a simple by the numbers, Ukraine has a much smaller army, and they don't have nukes. And if it gets really bad, let's say they do very well and push the Russians back, I find it highly unlikely that Putin's going to take that.
And you
He's
think
just
that
gonna
you
keep
think he's
going.
going to so you think that Putin's going to win this by using the threat of nukes. And so let me ask you this, since we're getting into the question of morality about this, and you seem to be the expert, what is the morality of allowing a country to be invaded by another country and stand by and provide no assistance?
Oh, I'm for sending like food and bread, just not bullets.
Okay.
and
Okay.
other-
Okay. So, for instance, let's say you would have issue with, I don't know, if with anybody helping, like Yemen. If Saudi Arabia and the United States are helping to bomb Yemen, you would take issue with any third country that might be providing weapons for Yemen.
I don't know about the war.
No, I'm just trying to find the moral consistency, because you've got this code, and I'm trying to try and figure out what it is. So you would have problems with anybody helping Yemen. What about Iraq? When we invaded Iraq, should there have been nobody? Like, it would be immoral for any of the countries around there to have provided them with any type of weaponry.
It depends who the bad guy is and who the good guy is.
Oh, wait
And
a second.
Again,
okay.
I don't know much
oh, wait.
about
Oh,
Iraq.
okay. So
Depends.
wait. So it depends now. All right. Now I'm getting clear. So this isn't just a moral, like a moral calculation that exists. You got to plug in who the people are. Is that it? So there's something immoral about the Ukrainians that if we were to help them repel the Russians, or is it that the Russians are super moral in their invasion?
Can you I'm not sure you fully understand. Can you explain to me why helping and encouraging a people to fight a war?
What do
they
you mean
cannot
by
win,
encouraging?
why that is
What do you
immoral?
mean by encouraging? We're definitely helping them,
keep-
that
Keep
country.
fighting, and here's a bunch of guns, and shoot them.
Well, I mean, I think you've got the sequence wrong. I think the Ukrainians said, we need ammunition, we need guns because we're fighting. And we said,
Defense.
okay.
Of defense.
But I need to get back to the who you said it depends on who the good guys and the bad guys are. Who are the good guys and bad guys here?
The bad guys are the Russians.
Okay. So, and who are the good guys?
I guess technically the Ukrainians.
Okay, technically the Ukrainians. Okay, so didn't you say, like, whether we help or not is a function of who the good guys and the bad guys are? What scenario other than shouldn't we be helping the good guys and not the bad guys? Or do I have that wrong? I'm unclear on your formulation here.
Should help bad guys. I'm going to return to my point, and I'm not trying to be hard here. I'm not sure you understand why it's immoral to help people fight a war they cannot win.
Well, that is
Can you
what
explain
I'm
to me why
trying to
that's
determine.
immoral?
What?
Do you understand why that's immoral?
But you're making a declarative statement based on nothing, basically.
I don't.
We don't know if they can, but the point is that eventually
It's
there will have
highly
to be a
unlikely.
peace.
Says you.
So
like,
wait,
I-
where
I-
does?
says
But wait a
you,
second. Okay,
yeah.
wait. Highly unlikely. Okay, where does the morality machine kick in for you? At highly unlikely,
Okay, so-
impossible, plausible, possible, somewhat.
When it's highly unlikely.
When it's highly unlikely, and what's the click before highly unlikely? Somewhat unlikely. So if it's somewhat unlikely, it's
not a lie.
moral.
It's more like a territory.
Wait, if it's somewhat unlikely, listen, I think that the United States should be saying to the Ukrainian government, you do not have the ability to take this or that. I don't know, frankly. I can't make that assessment. But I assume that there are people who have an opinion on it who are tied to our military. What was it? What was the city in the north? They took Mut. I can't remember now. Bakhmut. My understanding is the reporting was the United States was saying you should clear out of Bakhmut a month or two before that battle ended because you don't have the ability to secure that, and the Ukrainians felt otherwise. In that situation, U.S. moral, Ukrainian government immoral. You gotta give me if we're going to subscribe to your sense of morality, you need to give us a little bit more in terms of signposts so we can do it when you're not on the phone.
Okay. Well, I still don't think. Can you convince me that you understand why it's immoral to help people fight a war they cannot win?
In a complete vacuum, do I think it's immoral to arm people in a losing cause? I actually I don't understand that if those people, because we're just going to talk generically, right? If those people came to me and they go, look, Sam, let's just make it down to one individual. That way we can sort of like put this in an area where I actually have the ability to provide some help. Somebody comes to me and says, dude, I've got this fight with this guy and he's got a machine gun, and will you give me a machine gun? And I say, well, you know what? I think he's just better with his machine gun. So it would be immoral for me to give you the machine gun, but I can take it. No, I think what you should do is just do whatever he says. Otherwise, if I was to give you this gun that I have, it would be immoral because I don't think that you can win this fight. And the guy says, but I can win this fight. I know it looks like it's a David and Goliath situation, or it's 99-1, but I can believe I can win that fight. And I would say, no, it would be immoral for me to give you this gun. Do I have the scenario right that you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
And the
so,
guy you're speaking
and just to be clear,
he has a good cause.
Okay, he has a good cause. So just to be clear, my saying to him, I'm not giving you the gun because I don't trust your ability to assess this. You should just give up. And if that guy is going to rule your life for the rest of your life, you got to do that. I'm sorry, dude. Otherwise, I'll be immoral. Is that the way that you're saying
that? Die.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine. But,
all right. I mean, I think.
But you're
yes.
not Ukrainians.
I
right?
will say yes. I do not understand your concept of morality, if that is the scenario that you're talking about.
And the scenario that Sam is laying out is also not necessarily applicable to this because it's not a zero sum, one wins, one person wins, one person loses situation. There is eventually going to be a peace talk. And what funding the defense does is it puts Ukrainians in a better position in terms of peace negotiations to maintain as much territory as possible, which should be the goal because it's the moral side. So like eventually there will be some sort of negotiation, hopefully at least. And then the Ukrainians are going to be in a better position because they're being more funded. That's the reality of the situation.
Let me ask you another question, since I've answered yours, right? I've answered yours about.
Yes.
What other situations in which do you ignore the self-assessment that people who are looking for help in other areas, do you determine it is moral to use your judgment over theirs?
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I would model my response in accordance with what I said earlier.
As to whatever assessment you're able to make. I mean, that's a pretty big assessment.
If someone wants,
give me a sense. I've answered your question. Give me a sense of when you make these assessments about what is militarily possible for the Ukrainian government. How much military training or expertise are you bringing to bear here? Because you have an opportunity now to convince the tens of thousands of people who are listening that maybe they don't subscribe to your sense of morality, but if they do, right, you got to prove or at least show your bona fides as to how you know that they can't get back specific pieces of territory. Also, you also have to know that Russia's designs on Ukraine end with the Donbass, right? Because that's what you're saying. Like, they may have the ability to secure the rest of the country if we give them weapons, but they don't have the ability to get the Donbass. So give us a sense of just like a little bit. I'm going to give you a little time to tell us how you have figured all that out. Like, what are there specific theories that you are using? Is there some type of algorithm about like, armaments versus or what?
Okay, so to answer a previous question, like if a guy, let's say he asked me,
No,
hey,
I'm not. I answered that question for you. I'm asking you
No, I'll
about
get to it real quick.
Oh, okay.
So like let's say this guy asked me to make donations. I'm starting a restaurant, and I just am 99% confident it's going to be a failure. Like in an instance like that, I would not give money to him. I might give him like a little as
You
like,
think it's the
courtesy.
moral thing to do to not give him. In fact, you think it's immoral to give him money to work that restaurant.
Yeah, you shouldn't help people fail.
Right. No, I mean, I think in this instance, they wouldn't, helping them fail would be to not give them money. They're definitely going to fail at their, what you're saying is
So he
you
gets to
shouldn't
work hard.
You shouldn't help people
lose.
do stuff that you think they're not going to succeed at is really what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So
And you know all. You know all.
Well, you work at a restaurant.
Okay. If I'm really confident that it's not going to work well, why would I give him money?
No, I understand.
Anyways.
Well, no, you would not. It's not just why would I give them money? It would be immoral to help this guy
Yes.
start his restaurant.
To work hard and go bankrupt. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Interesting use of morality. But let's get back to the point. Like in the analogy that you used, you would be an expert in restaurateuring in some way. You would know this can't work. Or maybe the guys was saying like, I'm going to have a restaurant and I'm only going to sell. It's a full service restaurant. I'm only going to sell hot dogs with no buns and no condiments. It's just going to be like, this is my and maybe there was a slam dunk for you to realize like, maybe you want to do some more stuff, but let's put that aside. What is your expertise to make this assessment that is so correct that you can pronounce that helping Ukrainians in this instance is immoral?
It's not helping them. Like
No. You keep
we need
not
to
answering
prove
my
them.
question. What is your expertise in which you are using to make this assessment that it is impossible for them to win, and even under your definition of win?
I'm not saying it's impossible. It's highly unlikely.
Highly
Russia has a
unlikely.
much larger-
Highly unlikely. Yes. What is your expertise in which to make this assessment?
Well, I look at the size of Russia's army.
How
and I
big
look
is
at
it?
the size of Ukraine's army, and they're not shipping anyone in. We're not sending American troops to help Ukraine. They have a limited amount of troops.
Correct. What's the troop difference? I don't know.
I don't have the numbers tattooed to my arm.
Oh.
But it's not even
But
close.
give me a general. Give me a general. Give me a general number.
You need more for
how
an
many?
invasion.
How many troops has Russia called up at this point?
I don't have an exact number.
Oh, you don't have to give me an exact number. Do it within
proportion.
like I don't know. Do it within
Rough proportion.
10,000. 10,000.
Hundreds of thousands more.
Hundreds of thousands.
What's
of
the
more.
proportion?
I don't have.
That's
like I said,
but
I
that's
don't have
but
it tattooed to
but
my
that's the
arm.
thing. It's like here's the thing. Let me just stop for a second. Like cite a source. All right. Like your interpretation of these numbers. I don't know who you are. Usually, my understanding is that you need a lot more soldiers if you're the invading side than the defending side. So like these things like.
Well, wait a second. You say that, but you're not. Let's ask this guy. What is generally an invade? If there is a number, a proportion that if you're going to invade a country, you need a force that is X times bigger than the country that you're invading. What is that proportion? I'm just talking generically. I know you don't have the Russians stuff tattooed on your arm, but generally, what is it?
The proportion?
Yeah, no,
It
there's
depends
a
how good
military.
Your soldiers are.
Huh?
It depends how good your soldiers are.
Oh, okay.
what
Now, so let me ask you
have.
this about how good the Russian soldiers are. How good of an assessment do you think that Putin has about his military readiness? Because when this happened, you must have predicted this, right? Like you must have predicted this. You know what you should have done is you should have been also informing the U.S. government, because as far as I can tell from the reporting, the U.S. government thought that Russia would be able to overrun Ukraine in a matter of like 2 weeks.
That's true.
Now, but you
It
knew
would be days.
differently because you are aware of the skill sets of the Russian army.
I mean, it's basically just a game of numbers in my
Well, wait a
mind.
second. Why, if it's just a game of numbers, why did the U.S. screw up so badly? Because they weren't funding this war until it became clear that Russia messed up. Why did Russia screw up so badly? Did they not know the numbers either? Putin didn't
Russians
know
are
the
like-
numbers. Biden didn't know the numbers. I don't know if Zelensky knew the numbers, but you know the numbers. I think it's immoral that you didn't share it with any of those people. You're sitting on all of this info and you're not sharing it with anybody. That, I think, is a little bit immoral.
Okay, well, let me just say that like 10 or 20 years from now, I think we're going to look back on this and regret having sent weapons to Ukraine. And if it ever comes to a nuclear war, that was one of my favorite lines. I don't want a nuclear war with Russia, but like, how do you respond to something like that?
Do you
How do you
think
respond to that?
what? Let me ask you this: do you think that if the United States said we're not going to send any weapons to Ukraine because they have a nuclear weapon, what do you think would happen with these? Why do you think these other countries who petitioned to join NATO for the first time in 50 years, Finland and Sweden, why do you think they did that? Do you think their fears are unfounded that if the United States was willing to say, okay, we're not going to give you any weapons, we're going to give you some food. Here's some food packets and some blankets, but we're not going to give you it because they got nukes. So we're not going to in any way fund any defense of anywhere around here because they got nukes. What do you think would have happened then?
Okay. So it looks like you're willing to risk nuclear war. Will you?
No. You keep changing the subject. I'm asking you what happens if nukes are a license to invade any country.
That's a difficult question, and I don't have that answer.
You got to work on that
think
one
that fast.
because I mean, wait, I'm sorry. Did you say
I'm
you
just
can't
saying,
think? Whoa. Did you say you can't think
You
that
appear-
fast? Whoa. Did you just say you can't think that fast?
Sometimes I don't immediately form an opinion.
No, but I'm curious because this war has been going on for 2 years, and you're telling me that 2 years ago the U.S. should not have funded Ukrainians because Russia has a weapon, and it never contemplated to you the scenario, to think about the scenario you have been espousing for the past 23 minutes on this phone call? And you got to think fast about it? It's been 2 years, dude.
Okay, so you're still not admitting you're willing to risk nuclear war with this country. Just own it.
Am I willing
No.
to
I'm not
risk
trying to-
nuclear war? I think there's actually a greater risk of nuclear war the opposite way.
By not fighting Russia? How?
Because if having nukes becomes a license to invade countries without any even arming of the countries that you're invading, this country will start invading countries. Pakistan will start invading countries. Israel may start invading countries. Russia, there's no reason to believe, would have stopped invading countries.
And because we had a defensive agreement with Ukraine based on denuclearization. We're the ones more serious about stopping the threat of nuclear war, dude.
But-
because that was part of it. We provided an incentive for them to denuclearize and get fewer nuclear weapons in play here. That's what the defense is
Yeah.
for.
But
I
to
mean,
be
the new
fair,
thing,
it was unfair for me to bring up that scenario because you haven't taken any time to think about it, and it's been 2 years. So I'm going to tell you what, dude. It's been 25 minutes. We had this conversation. I'm going to let you go. We'll let you think
All right.
about it. Call back.
All right.
All right.
It's good talking to you.
No, it's good talking to you too. I appreciate it.
Like the nuke gets into my calculus when it talks about like should we decapitate, strike Putin, or invade Moscow, or keep the even like Crimea, that you might start thinking about. If it's over the Donbass, I don't think this is just me. I don't think Putin's going to drop a nuke.
It's hard to imagine.
Yeah.
Like if we don't have the ability, like, yes, an existential threat to Putin and to Russia, I think you're getting into territory where they would where a nuke would be on the table. But again, if they're willing to launch a nuke over the Donbass, I got some bad news for you about anything else that's going to go on over in the future. Nuke Gingrich says, ask the caller if it was immoral for France to provide support to America in the Revolutionary War.
I mean, like that question that also has an answer, but it's like it's based on an actual like the Spanish Civil War. I think FDR should have been given war material to the Republicans, definitely. And I also think there's probably a point where the Republicans and anarchists should have said like, hey, we're just getting people killed by holding out longer. I don't have at all feel confident to make that assessment for Ukraine right now.
Yeah.
And those
Worcester Ice Cats writes, I didn't tattoo the numbers on my arm, Dad.
Yeah.